welcome back to the deep dive. If you thought the streaming wars were just about music or video, you probably haven't been watching the audio space closely. We're going to unpack a really massive strategic move by Spotify today. And it doesn't just nudge the publishing industry, it might actually reshape the whole audiobook landscape.
Yeah, especially for independent creators.
Exactly.
That's really the core tension we're diving into. Our mission here is to really analyze Spotify's, it's a brand new direct publishing program aimed squarely at independent authors.
Right.
And this isn't just, a small feature update. It feels more like a direct collision course.
A collision between what exactly?
Between let's say, the established, maybe somewhat rigid world of traditional book publishing.
Okay.
And the very flexible, high-volume culture we see in streaming audio.
So the big news, the announcement itself, is that Spotify has basically opened the doors. Independent authors can now publish their audiobooks straight onto the platform. They get to bypass the usual gatekeepers, all that complicated licensing. And crucially, they can sort of sidestep the dominance of the traditional, one-off purchase model.
Exactly. That direct link authors straight to that huge listener base. That's the game changer here.
Right.
It signals a major shift, moving away from that traditional kind of siloed structure for audiobooks, where you buy it outright or use credits.
Yeah, the credit system.
Towards something that's much more open, integrated. Really a streaming-first model.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics then. Because I imagine if you're an author who's only ever dealt with, say, Amazon or traditional distributors, getting your book onto Spotify, well, it sounds complicated, right?
It could seem that way.
How does an indie author actually get their, 12-hour epic fantasy novel onto the Spotify system?
Well, they were pretty smart about it. They decided not to reinvent the wheel entirely. So instead of building the whole backend from scratch, Spotify actually partnered with Findaway Voices.
Ah, Findaway. Okay, I know that name. They're pretty established in the audiobook world.
Very established. A really well-known distributor, an aggregator, basically a hub in the audiobook industry already.
So Findaway is kind of the technical bridge here.
Precisely. That's a good way to put it. Authors upload their finished audiobook files, professionally produced, ideally through the Findaway platform.
And Findaway handles.
Findaway does the technical heavy lifting. They standardize the metadata, make sure the audio files meet Spotify's streaming specs.
Quality control, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the QC and the technical aggregation needed to push that content smoothly into Spotify's library. Once Findaway approves it, boom, it's available to that massive global audience.
Okay, I have to pause you there on massive global audience.
It's worth pausing on.
Because we're used to thinking about book discovery in terms of, literary festivals, book reviews, maybe bestseller lists on niche websites.
It's a smaller scale.
But Spotify, we're talking a completely different order of magnitude for exposure, aren't we?
It's really the crucial detail why this is, worth a deep dive. We have to remember, Spotify boasts over 600 million users worldwide.
600 million, wow.
Now, okay, sure, most of them are there for music or podcasts, yes. But even a fraction of that for a self-published author. That's just unprecedented passive exposure.
Okay, but that exposure, doesn't it also risk chaos? If you just open the floodgates to potentially millions of books, how do you maintain any sense of quality?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Won't it just become saturated with, junk?
Right. And degrade the listening experience.
That's where the Findaway partnership is key again. Findaway is vetting the audio specifications.
Ah, okay. So the sound quality itself.
Exactly. They ensure it sounds decent enough for streaming, that it's technically usable. They're not doing editorial QC, they aren't judging if the plot is good or bad. But they are making sure the audio itself meets a professional standard.
Yeah.
And that stops a flood of, badly recorded, unlistenable stuff from overwhelming the system.
So Spotify is basically treating audiobooks like they eventually treated music and podcasts. The goal is integration.
Total integration.
They want audiobooks to be just as easy to access as your workout playlist or your favorite podcast, quick to find, as simple to stream, something that just blends into your daily routine.
It really feels like the final piece of their audio content puzzle. They're trying to remove the friction of the dedicated purchase, that extra step.
Yeah.
And just integrate audiobooks into the stream of stuff you're already listening to. That shift in how people consume the content, that's probably what the traditional audiobook market should be most worried about.
Okay, let's flip back to the authors themselves. You mentioned indie authors. Why was it that someone who maybe, crushed it selling ebooks still found it so hard to break into audio until recently?
Yeah, it's a good question. There were really two huge hurdles, and both tended to require significant upfront cash and know-how.
Okay, what were they?
First, just the cost of professional production. Getting a good narrator, editing the audio, mastering a, say, 10-hour book. Sources suggest a typical novel could easily cost an author between, like, $5,000 and $8,000 upfront.
Wow, okay. That's a massive risk, especially if you're self-funding everything.
Huge risk. And then the second hurdle was distribution, which we've touched on.
Right.
Even if you did shell out for that high-quality, expensive reduction, actually getting it lifted and marketed effectively on the main platforms, that was often really tough, sometimes reserved for traditional publishers with established connections.
So Spotify stepping in, it directly tackles that distribution problem.
Instantly solves the reach problem, yeah.
Yeah.
By making that path through Findaway so much simpler, they free up the author
To
focus their limited resources, time, money, on actually writing a good story and getting a quality recording done, knowing that the highway to the audience is, well, already paved.
And if we talk about why this is financially empowering, it's not just about reaching 600 million people potentially, right? It's also about how authors actually get paid. The sources we looked at point to a pretty fundamental difference in the royalty structure Spotify's pushing.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and potentially disruptive. The established market, like Audible, mostly uses a purchase or credit model.
Right, you buy the book for, say, $20 or use a credit.
And the author gets a percentage of that sale price. Spotify's model, though, is built on streaming royalties, much more like how music works on the platform.
So how does that translate?
An author earns a slice of the overall revenue pie, the money generated from premium subscriptions and ads, based on how many minutes people actually listen to their book.
Okay, so it shifts the author's income potential. It's less about individual transactions.
Exactly.
And more about listener engagement and, I guess, the overall health of Spotify's subscription base.
Precisely. The author's earnings are tied directly to listening activity. Now, the sources couldn't give us exact percentages yet. That's still evolving.
Sure.
But the structure itself offers potentially more transparency. Authors can see, okay, every minute streamed contributes something. That clarity can be a big draw compared to some of the, let's say, more opaque reporting structures elsewhere.
So it feels like a move towards more control and maybe more financial independence for the creator, no matter how big or small they are.
That seems to be the promise,
Yeah.
yes. Empowerment.
Okay, let's switch seats now. Let's look at this completely from the listener's side. If I'm already using Spotify every day for music, for podcasts,
Yeah.
what does adding audiobooks mean for me practically?
Well, the big sell is convenience.
Yeah.
Pure convenience.
So?
Spotify is very clearly moving towards being that single place for all your audio needs. Think about your commute, right? You don't have to stop your music playlist, close Spotify, open up a separate audiobook app, find your bookmark, then press play.
Ah, right. It all stays within the same app.
Exactly. You just switch from your podcast to your audiobook seamlessly within the same environment. That removes a surprising amount of friction.
That seamlessness is probably huge for making it a daily habit. But the advantage for listeners gets even sharper, doesn't it? This is where Spotify seems to be taking direct aim at the credit model of its rivals.
Oh, absolutely. The competitive pressure is really obvious in how they're experimenting with access.
What kind of experiments?
We've seen Spotify roll out some incredibly attractive perks. Specifically, in some countries, premium subscribers are already getting 15 hours of free audiobook listening every single month.
Whoa, wait. 15 free hours just included in their regular premium sub?
Included. As part of the subscription, they already pay for music and ad-free podcasts.
That completely changes the value proposition, doesn't it?
Massively.
Your existing subscription suddenly gives you maybe 2, maybe 3 full audiobooks a month. That directly challenges the whole 1 credit per month system that dominates the market.
It forces you, listener, to ask, why would I spend extra money on a dedicated book credit when I'm already getting hours of audiobook content bundled into the service I use constantly anyway?
Yeah.
It transforms Spotify from just being about music and podcasts into a genuine full-service audio entertainment package.
So why now? Why is Spotify making this huge investment in audiobooks at this moment?
I think it comes down to scale and seeing the next big opportunity. They saw how massively successful their big push into podcasts was.
Right. They definitely changed how people listen to spoken word.
They fundamentally altered that landscape.
Yeah.
And the sources suggest they're explicitly betting that audiobooks are the next major wave in content consumption.
So get in early.
Get in early, open the platform to indie authors now, build the library, integrate it seamlessly.
Yeah.
So that when that audiobook wave really crests, they already own the distribution channels and the discovery tools. It's a strategic land grab, in a way.
Okay, let's talk competition. The incumbents. For years, really decades, the audiobook market has been dominated by Audible, part of Amazon, Apple Books, Google Play audiobooks. They've built up big libraries, but they're mostly rooted in that buy-to-own or credit model.
Right, the traditional players.
What is Spotify's actual competitive edge against these giants? It can't just be the user numbers, can it?
The user numbers are huge, but no, it's more than that. It's the platform's DNA, I think.
What do you mean DNA?
Spotify has a distinct advantage that those traditional companies just don't really have baked in. And that's its existing streaming culture.
Yep.
Its community features, the social sharing aspects, and maybe most importantly, that incredibly sophisticated personalization engine that we all use every day for music discovery.
Ah, the algorithm. We know how eerily good Spotify is at suggesting the next song we might like.
Exactly.
Applying that same engine to book recommendations. That must completely change how people find new stories, right?
It absolutely should. Think about traditional book discovery. It's quite passive, isn't it? You browse a bestseller list, maybe search for an author you already know, perhaps you get an email newsletter.
Yeah, pretty standard.
Spotify's discovery is proactive. It's algorithmic. They know your listening habits across all audio music, podcasts. They can infer your interest in, say, historical fiction because you listen to history podcasts.
Or figure out you like fast-paced thrillers because of the tempo of the music you stream.
Precisely. They can connect those dots in ways a traditional bookstore or audiobook app just can't.
So we move from static lists to these dynamic, personalized recommendations. Let's talk about this idea of audiobook mixes. What would that actually look like for a user?
Yeah, imagine this. You finish listening to a long true crime podcast series. Immediately, maybe on your home screen, a personalized mix pops up, titled something like Forensic Thrillers for You.
And it would feature...
It could feature chapters or excerpts from independent authors whose books match that tone, that pacing, that subject matter. Or maybe you get a Cozy Fantasy Reads playlist, letting you sample like 5 different indie authors in that niche, maybe even with little musical cues related to their stories.
That dramatically lowers the barrier to trying something new. You don't have to commit a credit or $20 just to sample an author you've never heard of.
Exactly. You just hit play on the mix. It's frictionless sampling.
And that must change the whole marketing game for authors, too.
Completely. Authors now need to think more like musicians promoting an album. They can't just rely on a text description on a sales page.
You need audio hooks.
Yes. Short, compelling audio snippets, book trailers designed for audio, maybe even running targeted Spotify ads against specific genre playlists or listener demographics. The power of the streamable sample becomes the core discovery tool.
So it almost forces authors to become better sound designers and audio marketers, not just writers. It's a whole new ecosystem based on sound bites and grabbing attention quickly.
Which definitely benefits creators who can craft a really compelling audio hook.
Yeah.
If we zoom out from the business mechanics, this whole move by Spotify, it feels like more than just a smart business calculation. There's a sort of structural shift happening here.
How so?
It feels like it's genuinely empowering creative independence.
Shifting the leverage, maybe, away from the big publishing houses and more towards the individual creator, assuming they can produce quality work themselves.
Right. And because of the sheer scale we talked about, that 600 million user base, it feels like a real step towards maybe democratizing storytelling.
Democratizing, that's a big word. What makes it democratic in this context?
Well, what's really fascinating is how it drastically lowers the barrier to exposure. Exposure is maybe the hardest, most expensive thing to acquire in the modern content world. This potentially gives smaller, maybe more niche or unique voices a chance to be heard on the exact same digital stage as the global bestsellers. The literary equivalents of Taylor Swift or Stephen King.
Just by being in the same app, the same delivery system.
Exactly. It kind of removes, or at least lowers, the traditional gatekeeping function that publishing houses have historically performed.
Which could be huge for diversity of voices and stories.
Absolutely. If you have a compelling story, and you can manage to get a quality production made, which is becoming easier with technology, suddenly the world's largest audio audience is potentially within reach, without needing the stamp of approval from a traditional publisher first.
So it's like Spotify is building the infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a textbook example of using distribution power to try and foster a more open creative economy. They aren't just adding items to their catalog, they're building the highway system.
A highway for indie creators.
A highway for independent creators to potentially directly monetize their work and connect with listeners on a massive scale. It's really about access and opportunity. And ultimately, that should benefit listeners too, right? People who are hungry for different kinds of stories, fresh voices that might never have fit the traditional publishing mold. Hashtag outro.
Okay, so to briefly wrap up the huge impact here, we're really looking at a double win, potentially.
Seems like it.
On one hand, massive global distribution suddenly opens up for independent authors. That's huge. And on the other hand, for listeners, you get this consolidated, feature-rich audio platform that's getting more affordable, maybe even offering up to 15 hours of free audiobook content each month.
Right. The takeaway for creators seems pretty clear. Those technical hurdles are definitely coming down.
Well,
Platforms like Fendaway Voices are making the production and upload process much more accessible.
and Spotify's reach handles the distribution headache.
Exactly. And for listeners, well, you should probably anticipate a big wave of fresh, diverse, independent voices hitting your library pretty soon. And maybe you won't even have to pay extra for a lot of it.
That's definitely the exciting part of the shift. But all right, here's something for you, the listener, to maybe chew on as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
If recommendation algorithms, these personalized audiobook mixes, and short, easily streamable audio snippets become the main way people discover new books,
Yeah.
will that fundamentally change the kinds of stories that get written and become successful? Will we see more books designed specifically for quick algorithmic appeal? Or will the sheer narrative power and marketing muscle of the established global bestsellers mean they remain completely unchallenged at the top?
That is a provocative question. The future of what makes a book successful in the age of the algorithm.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
We'll catch you next time.